Hello and welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. It's time for our second and final Mayfly update from around the country, and this week we hear from Lough Arrow with Jackie Mahon and Lough Sheelin with Eamonn Ross. We'll hear from Jackie and Eamonn in a moment, but first, Tom, I believe there's still Mayfly holding out on Lough Arrow.
You heard it first on this show a couple of weeks ago that Mike Eady did say there could be at least 2 weeks left, and yesterday was a dirty day here. And it was good for some, like very interesting. So I've a lad up at the moment, a Scottish lad, and one of the local lads, one of the Irish lads that I bring out. So we're out in 2 boats, and we were on wets, right, on the dirty day, and we rose 11 fish, and only got 2 of them at the end, right? And for some reason, on the wets wasn't working, and the other boat, the Scottish lad in it. They started on wets in the morning, rose a couple of fish, didn't touch them, switched to dries, even though it was a big wave where they were fishing. There rose 8 fish on the dries and nailed 7 of them, landed them. That's a couple of fish over 3 pounds and like a great day. Fantastic day.
How do you make sense of that?
Yeah, don't know. Yeah, you know that Simpson episode where Homer disappears into the hedge? Yeah, that's me. That's me on that one.
I know. No, you could, in Jackie Mahon style, you could blame the Northern Lights. Stay tuned, folks.
Yeah, no,
and listen to Jack. This is a new theory.
Yeah, you've heard it here first in Ireland on the Fly.
Aurora Borealis. You'll be able to read about it in a new book next year.
But I have seen it before where they'll just splash at wets. But generally they splash the dries too, but splash the dries that day. I was out then today, and funny, not as dirty a day, but conditions were nice. Three decent fish on the wets, and on the dries again, and rose another 4 or 5 fish. But I had to search for fly.
Yeah,
really had to search for fly, and place where there was fly yesterday on the dirty day wasn't there. There was gas, it wasn't there. I went back, even though the wind didn't suit it. Like there'd been a lot of fly there yesterday, but no. And while I was there, I was just about to say, they'll still know what it's about, and rose a fish on the blind and caught him. Yeah, and then went back down to where it suited the wind. It was the odd fly and the odd fish movement. But yeah, it's funny. But it's I mean, and Mike said it as well, conditions, but really it matters this time of year. Really it matters. I'm dreading, I think Saturday is forecast 19, 20 degrees.
Yeah, it's barbecue weather, isn't it?
It's bank holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hear the bass drum. Never a good sign. Never a good sign. But that's it. Look, we've got a couple of nice days so far this week, which has been good, and fishing has responded.
I'm presuming this time next week when we chat again, we won't be talking about Mayfly, will we?
I'd really be bluffing them, I suppose. Yeah, I'm out till this day week, or tomorrow. Well, this day week, but yes, you'll hear this on Thursday. So I'm out till Thursday week.
Right.
Now I've been already to the long range forecast. Tuesday, if not Wednesday, looks like a dirty day.
So it could be another.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. So that's me finished then. I'm finished then Thursday week, and then I'm off to fish the National in Killarney on Friday and Saturday, the ITF National.
Stay tuned for that.
That's it. So next Thursday I finish. I have a couple of days the week after, but it's real sort of, they're not Mayfly. They're people who are visiting just want a day out. The people who are just happen to be in the country then, and so they just want to go out fishing. They're not Mayfly specific.
Yeah. They'll enjoy it. And we're going to hear from Jackie Mahon about Arrow and a little bit about Earn in a little while, and stay tuned for Jackie's Northern Lights theory. Certainly a first in fly fishing terms.
It has been a while since we had the Northern Lights in Ireland.
Depends where you are in the country.
I suppose where the Great Western Lakes are.
Yeah, but that's true.
Oh, I got out of that one, didn't I?
So stay tuned for we'll have to do an episode on the Northern Lights theory on brown trout fishing. And also, we're going to hear first from Eamonn Ross and Lough Sheelin. Tom, you spoke to him earlier, and Eamonn's got some really interesting information about the Mayfly project, which we want to follow up with as well. So some really interesting stories on that'll be worth delving into a little bit more. And of course, Tom, before we hear from Eamonn, Lough Sheelin seems to be the Mecca now, the place to go, isn't it? Everybody's rushing up to Sheelin. You have to get to Sheelin. Get to Sheelin.
The lure of Sheelin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, anybody's been looking at social media over the last couple of weeks, yet you have to say rightly so. There's been some absolute bullocks caught out of it. Fantastic fish. I'm seeing fish in the 7 to 9 pound range. Generally caught on nymphs, which is, we discuss a bit with the two guys. But wild brown trout of that quality, you can understand why people will go to and maybe go through a day of no takes, and maybe the following day maybe have 2 or 3 takes, but just for something of that standard. I mean, generally within Irish fly fishing, to catch a wild brown trout of over 5 pounds is a big achievement, right? Really is, and it's a bit of a goal for a lot of anglers. And Sheelin is a place where you can do that. The next hit you get now, it might be 6 hours away. You might start at 10 o'clock and you might get a hit till 4 o'clock. But guys are willing to do that, just for a fish of that quality. And then you look at some guys have hit it really lucky. I see a couple of lads there. Anybody knows them? Gene Harron, Niall Gilston, Darren, who's been on the show.
Oh, Darren, yeah.
They've had some fantastic fish. Everybody's following them on social media. My own buddy Paddy Ward had a red letter day. Just telling you about it there beforehand. It was a couple of weeks ago. He had 5 fish and 1 8.5 and 1 over 9. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That is, So yeah, you can understand that, and there's plenty others. I just picked out those examples. Some fantastic fish of it. Yes, I can understand it. I can understand it. Why wouldn't you?
Well, look, let's hear from Eamonn Ross anyway to give us kind of some of the updates and insights. And in fairness, it wasn't all milk and honey as well at the same time. It was a tough one for Eamonn, as you'll hear. But Tom first spoke to Eamonn about his season so far and Sheelin and how the Mayfly has been.
Well, okay, so from I suppose the 1st of March it opens. I couldn't get out of the house because there was snow. We couldn't get outside. I couldn't drive, so I had to abandon my plans to go to fish. I went out on the 2nd of March. I had 2 trout on the 2nd of March. I've had excellent fishing in March and April. I suppose on wet flies and on buzzer. And the Mayfly started, I think, about a fortnight or 3 weeks ago now. So the beginning of May, maybe the 7th, 10th of May. Now, I was working that week and there was exceptionally good fishing. A number of people had really, really good fishing during that week. When I got off and started to fish, I had a couple of good days at the start, but it has been a struggle since. And now I'm struggling. I know that there are other people that are getting fish, but they're not getting huge bags of fish like they were. But there was some lovely trout got, and there was lots of trout got at the start of it. Hatches have been quite good. I just don't think that they're as heavy as last year. I just think that they're a bit lighter. That could be something to do with the high water or whatever, I don't know. And I think that it's tapering off at the minute, probably earlier than I'd have expected it to.
Oh, do you actually think it's tapering off now, do you?
I do, yes. The hatches are, I suppose they're becoming more sparse and they're becoming more localized. So it had been hatching all around where you'd expect it to be around the lake. And that seems to be dying off. But you can still find exceptionally big hatches in some bays.
And come here, tell me, is it a bit like here on Corb here? Like, I'd know certain spots that would have later hatches. Is Sheelin the same?
Yeah, well, look, usually it starts up the upper end. What I call the upper end, it started up at Harnshield and it progresses down towards the northern end of the lake. And that's where it finishes. So happening now is that you're seeing that happening.
And it's moving towards the northern end now as we're talking. Yeah.
It is, yeah. So look, the hatches are still there. It's phenomenal the number of fly you see there. I'm fairly certain the trout are stuffed. Having said that, I got a couple of trout the other night on wet flies, and I brought one of them with me. I had a piece of them for the breakfast this morning, Tom. And
man.
I done an autopsy, and you can look at what he had been feeding on, and the trout was way out the middle of the lake, and he had been feeding on spent. And then it appears that before he started on the spent, he was feeding on nymphs. Now, he may have been feeding on nymphs. Probably there's the fly hatch well out into the middle of the lake on Sheelin. So he didn't appear to have been on greens. So they're only coming up to the top at night time. You rarely see them up at the top on the greens. I haven't seen very, very little fish feeding on greens. But they're still feeding on nymphs, but it's very hard to catch them. So people, we're using probably the wrong techniques. There's bound to be a technique there that you can get them because they're still feeding on them.
Yeah, probably as more and more people do it, somebody will stumble on the exact method, I think. Because it's a recent enough method to come into the armory there in Sheelin, isn't it, really?
It is, yes.
In the last 4 or 5 years.
That's all, yeah. And no, there will be people who'll tell you that they were doing it for years before that, and maybe they were. But it has generally come in. Everybody was fishing nymphs this year, to the exclusion of other methods that may have been just as good. So, for example, when I went out the other day and fished wets, I had 2 lovely trout on wets in about an hour and a half. So
interesting, yeah.
So we can exclude that stuff. I think the other thing is that James Barry is doing research on the lake at the minute. So there's a bit of research going on. He's doing research on the movement of trout and what happens to them when the water temperature goes high.
Is this the one with he's tagging them, isn't it?
He tags the trout, yes.
Yeah, he's tagged fish, and there's beacons or receivers
all around the lake,
dotted all over the lake. Yeah,
so
it's very interesting.
His receivers around the lake. It's an absolutely massively interesting project, and we need to give huge credit to IFI and to James Barry and people like that for doing that sort of research. But one of the things that he reported on at the AGM was that last year he noticed that the trout were sitting at 3 feet under the surface, and when the weekend came, they went down to 12 or 14 feet.
And what happens at the weekend?
He can't say that there's a scientific correlation, but it was interesting that he would have recorded noise levels as higher. So there was more boats, there was more boat traffic, and the trout responded and went down. So when there's a lot of boats, you certainly don't get them up on the top.
It's really interesting. It's actually like the breakthrough sort of evidence that proves the fact.
It does,
a lot of boat traffic will eventually put fish down. My view is, I've often said this, I don't think the trout will go, oh, there's a boat. Oh, look at that. There's a boat and an engine. But they sense something, and they have a survival instinct.
Absolutely, 100% correct, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, God help you if you were at 3 feet around Sheelin because it was like spaghetti junction at times. Now, the interesting thing that I would have noticed as well is that as the fishing got deteriorated, people just disappeared. So anglers and in fairness, it is difficult. It's a difficult lake. And I know you've got to respect that these big trout, they don't give themselves up easily. So I suppose to answer your question, I had a really, really good year. I cannot complain about the year I've had. I've had the best year I've had so far on Sheelin. I've had more trout and more big trout. But right. The Mayfly, I think you anticipate that the Mayfly is going to be brilliant. You go out in March more in hope than anticipation. And it's the opposite we should be doing in the Mayfly. We should be going out in hope than anticipation. But
it's true. And when I touched base to you first to say that, isn't it amazing? The expectation levels are different in May.
They are, yeah.
They really are. You expect it. Whereas, and I know it here, when I'm fishing, let's say in July, and fishing here in July can be great.
Yeah.
Last year it was better than May. But the expectation level, and people are almost, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had the same catch in May, people are going, oh, this is what I expected.
You're supposed to have it, yeah. I reckon that if you come off Sheelin on an average in 1 trout a day, you're doing exceptionally well.
Yeah, you are.
So the bags that people have had, fair play to them.
They have, but also as well, and you touched on it there. You may have been, when you took your holidays, we were probably, with hindsight, you might have been a week too late.
I possibly was, but I could have been a week early last year. So you can't judge.
Look, I know that. I mean, I said it here 2 years ago, 2022. I had my best Mayfly fishing on the 29th, 30th, 31st of May and 1st of June. Right, those 3 days were the best. Last year, the Mayfly was finished by the 25th of May.
Yeah, there you go.
So you just cannot tell.
Yeah.
So
Look, I suppose one of the things that affected, in my view, affected the fishing this year was the extraordinarily high water levels. So
they're very high, weren't they? I heard Sheelin was very high.
Oh, we had like I'd go up in the winter time looking at the trout spawning, and there was only 3 or 4 days that I could get clear views. So you go up in the daytime, you'll see the fish in the rivers, and there was only a couple of days that you could actually do that because of the height of the water. But there was massive numbers of fish up. It's a joy to see. So
yeah, you were saying that you walked them. Yeah, I've often walked them here, but particularly, and we were saying it there was some very big fish on your rivers this year, wasn't there?
There was, yeah, but there was a lot. So there's 2 systems. One of them is the Mount Nugent system, and the other one is the one that goes up by the Sheelin Shamrock. It goes up to Oldcastle. And on the Mount Nugent system, you get smaller fish. And by small, I mean 2.5 to 4 pound. Whereas on the Mount Nugent system, you'll see fish 4 pound up.
Right.
So you see a lot of bigger fish. It's a deeper river, and there's a more sustained flow in it. Whereas the Mount Nugent is much more spatey. And the fish go up and down very, very quickly. So
right,
we were trying to. I was trying to get some footage of trout spawning, and I got Conor McNamee. He has a drone, and he's very interested in photography. So I had seen fish on a Sunday night. Myself and Martin McCoy were up, and we had seen absolutely the river was stuffed with fish.
Yeah.
And I mean everywhere we looked there was fish, and. We came up, I think, the following Thursday. Conor couldn't get up the next day, but he came up the following Thursday, and we walked the river and we couldn't see a fish at all. But we see all of the reds.
You see the reds. And then, front of fact, let's say if you couldn't pick out the reds and you only walked on the Thursday, you think, oh God, there's nothing running.
Nothing here, yeah. That's what you'd say.
Yeah, it's true, actually, yeah. No, that's great to hear. Really is.
Yeah. So I suppose from the fishing perspective, it has been very, very good. Apart from the Mayfly, which I think has been slow, it is even. I'm finding it difficult. These are my own shortcomings. This is not generally speaking, but I'm finding it difficult to get them on the spent even, and they are coming up on the spent at night time if you have the right evening. So there are spent going out, so that's worth fishing. And if anybody had time to spare, it is always worth a run if you had the right evening on Sheelin. From now until probably a week or two's time, they will be spent on it, and if you can find where they are, the fish do come up, and they do look for spent at this time of the year, so you'll get them on the blind as well. So it's worth it.
And plus the fact the lake is probably a bit quieter as well.
It's a lot quieter. So I'm going up today, and I'm looking forward to getting out there today. And like I've been looking back in the diary, and one of the biggest trout I caught him on the 29th of May. I think it was 4 years ago. So it's not.
What date is? Yeah, and for those that we're recording this today, on what date is today?
29th of May today. And I caught him on a nymph at the time. But anyway, so look, I suppose that there are a few interesting things happening. That piece, James Barry's research, I think, is very, very important, and I think that they need to be commended on that. I think Ken Whelan is doing research on Mayfly. He's doing it on a few lakes, and he needs to be commended for that work, because we take the Mayfly hatch on Sheelin for granted. It's a kind of a phenomenon, but we don't know why it's so good up there. We don't know what impact something might have that would. Remember that it disappeared off Sheelin for years. So we had no Mayfly when I came to Cavan first in the 80s, and there was very, very little Mayfly on the lake. So I commend that sort of work, because if we can learn what it is that has such hatches, why we have such hatches on Sheelin, we might be able to apply that to some of the other lakes around the country, and we may also be able to prevent it from deteriorating. Or we need to know what are the likely impacts that could impact on the Mayfly hatch. And the other big thing for Sheelin is that I bought a thermometer. I got very technical.
Good man.
I went to eBay. I bought a thermometer from China for £10 or something, and I've been checking the water temperature because I got interested in that because of the work James Barry is doing. So I'm just checking surface temperatures, and I have seen it steadily. Yeah, I think that on the 2nd of March, the temperature was something like 6 point something. The last time I checked it, it was 16 point something.
Is it up to 16 now?
Yeah. And so that's a huge increase. And my view is that there is some sort of a correlation between. There's a couple of degrees in improvement in temperature used to improve the fishing for me, but it goes to a point where if it keeps going up, it disimproves.
Yeah, it hits a peak and then drops.
Yes.
It's funny, keep that because years ago I keep a diary, and every couple of years I'm very good with the diary. And there was a couple of years where I used to keep the water temperature every day. And exactly what you're saying, the fishing would improve as the temperature went up, but there was that critical point.
Yeah.
And then they would go searching for cooler water. It was very interesting. Very interesting.
So look, I'm thrilled that that's going on, and I suppose the other thing is that we've been talking with IFI about more work on rivers, and I couldn't praise the local staff enough for the enthusiasm that they have for identifying areas that we might improve. So we're working on that, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that as much as I do the fishing, but I really do enjoy the fishing, and I do get shocked and frustrated, Tom, when I don't get fish. And but the drought that I had for a week, I got no fish for a week in my holidays.
Well, you're not alone with that frustration. I think we're all the same. We all, we don't want loads, but it's nice to get a couple. But you know what you do now? You go out now and have a good day.
I will. Look, thanks very much.
And now let's hear how Lough Arrow fared with Jackie Mahon.
Arrow started off really well, Tom, Dara. The fishing was fantastic. The first couple of days on it, at the start of the Mayfly, we were averaging some days 5, 6, 7 was probably the best bag I had on at the start. And kind of went downhill then after that. Northern Lights, strange enough, as soon as they came in, fishing just went boom, gone, disappeared for some strange reason. And I've been talking to a lot of people about it too, and they said the same thing. Since the Northern Lights came in.
That's a new theory now, Jackie. I have, because you hear the lunar, you hear the tides, Northern Lights now. That's a brilliant one.
I don't know what it was, Dara. It was just like the fishing was just really, really good, like on wets and emergers, and there wasn't big hatches of fly or, you know what I mean? It was just standard, steady little flow of fly. Found the fly, fish were up, taking them. And next thing, out of the blue, these Northern Lights, and next thing, a couple of days later, the fishing just went downhill. Like, you weren't rising the fish, you weren't seeing the fish either. And strange enough, I don't know, I'm no expert on Northern Lights, whatever, but I'm blaming them anyways, so I have to blame something.
We have to get an astrophysicist on.
Astrophysicist discussing the Northern Lights.
But I don't know. It just seemed to coincide, if you know what I mean, around the same time,
What were the weather conditions like, Jackie, after the Northern Lights?
Well, I suppose we had a lot of northern winds this year. Didn't help either. That definitely didn't help. Like when you're wearing a woolly hat and extra clothing you'd be wearing in March and April, didn't help either in the boat, But this year, the fishing was still okay, but you weren't rising the numbers of fish you'd usually rise during the Mayfly. And I mean, the fish definitely were smaller this year. We weren't getting what we had last year, most days we're averaging 2.5, 3 pounders, some days, you know what I mean? This year seems to be £1.5, £1.25, £2, No, we did get a couple of very, very good fish, like up to 5 pound weight. But the fishing was definitely a lot slower since those lights hit. And that's what I'm blaming anyways. I have to blame something.
We're back to the lights, have you noticed?
Back to the lights.
So come here, Jackie, you were saying the hatch wasn't as big as last year, was it not?
It came in kind of 2 to 3 days, Tom. When the bit of heat came into it, the bit of weather picked up, the fly came. And it just seemed to come all at once. And next thing, you were searching for fly. A few days later, you were actually searching for fly. The fly just seemed to, it just hatched, and next thing it was gone into the trees. Now, the spent fishing was really good, I have to say. Really good, but then again, the bigger fish weren't really moving. You had to go searching, so, but again, you weren't getting the numbers Tom, that you previously would have gotten, if you know what I mean, and constantly moving fish and seeing fish. You see the odd splash or two. That was it. They were like oncers, what you'd call them. You know, they come once. You would see them.
Just up oncers and that's it.
Yeah,
tell me, what's the state of affair there now at the moment, Jackie? Is this is the hatch over, or
the hatch is more or less the hatch? Yeah, there's hatches more or less over. You will find a few fly here and there if you go searching. Same with the spent Tom. If you go searching, you will find a few fly. Probably Melvin fished its head off this year. Really, the fishing was excellent on Melvin. Really, really good on Melvin and lively. And one or two lads that I know said the same thing. The fishing was fantastic on it, you know.
Was there any fly up? Because it does get
there was a steady flow of fly. Melvin doesn't get a big hatch of fly anyways. It gets that steady flow, and once you see one or two flying at the fish, they start, you know what I mean, Tom? So but Northern Lights didn't seem to affect them too much. You know. But no, the fishing was good.
You always said to me about Melvin, Jackie. I always remember you telling me about Melvin that if you see even one mayfly pulling up in the cast, I always remember you saying that. Yeah. Even if you only see one. Yep. That's
it.
What about Ern, Jackie?
Ern was similar. A lot of people saying the same thing. Ern was pretty poor this year. Had 1 or 2 days on it. Pretty good. Like Emergers was probably the best fly for me on it. And strange enough, when you've seen sedges, they seem to pick the sedges out quicker than they were picking the mayfly out at times, you know.
Right, that's interesting. That's interesting because that's very interesting because we're seeing sedges on Corrib at the moment with the mayfly. But the fish are still ignoring the sedges here.
Yeah,
they're taking them. Yeah.
Yeah, would you believe? Like even on Arrow the other day, we were fishing a sedge and a mayfly, and they were actually picking out the sedge as well as the mayfly.
Yeah.
But then when you went pulling, they wouldn't look at it. They just wouldn't look at it. It was just strange. Like, you know, they just wouldn't look at it.
Back turn then, what was the spent like? Was there much spent fishing?
The spent fishing was good in the evening times on the Tom. It was really good. Yeah. If you knew where to go, it was good. It definitely was. It was good. It was good. Like the same as Arrow. The spent fishing was good on Arrow too. Like, you know.
How would you rank then this year's mayfly for you, Jackie? Like, as in kind of neither great nor woeful, kind of in the middle, kind of.
Not as good as last year, Dara. Not as good for the quality of fish either. Like it was lively, Dara, probably more lively on spent fishing. Like they were up in the evenings, but during the day it was pretty poor. Like, you know, probably the best day was a couple of weeks ago. There was a really dirty day, wind on it. It was a Monday, and it was like a red letter day. I had one angler, and we had fantastic fishing, really and truly. And he must have rose about 30 fish for the day on his own. And it was just a fantastic day's fishing. It was that good I even got a chance to get a cast and get 2.5 pounder myself, which was fantastic, you know. But it was like that red letter day. And then the next day it was just back to normal again. It was, you see the odd fish, you're getting your 2s or your 3s a day, you know, and still small fish for the size of Arrow.
It's interesting, Tom, isn't it? Like from the people we've spoken to in terms of getting the updates, it's been patchy, and it's very much a case of, would you agree with this, Jackie? It's when the window of opportunity was there, you had to take it, and if you weren't there, you'd missed it.
You missed it, absolutely, Derek. You missed it, you really did. Like, and that Monday was just one of those days. It was.
If you were lucky enough to be out that day,
that
was
absolutely. And you had a single angler to do a bit of fishing yourself.
Even better.
The gods align.
All the stars aligned there, Jackie.
All
the stars aligned. But it's interesting because we were saying that when we were talking to Eamonn beforehand there, Jackie.
Yeah.
He was saying the thing, because he took his break probably a week too late.
Yeah.
And there was that period and he wasn't out for it. And like that could be the same about you. Like any anglers that were out that Monday.
Yeah.
I talk to them now subsequently. And they're going to go, it was the best mayfly ever, you know, because they had that one day experience. And, you know, it only takes one good day to make a fishing trip excellent, you know?
Absolutely, Tom. Absolutely. As I said, the start, just there, we said a couple of days in the end of April, when you did find, you know, the little trinkle of mayfly, the fishing was fantastic. Really was. It was fantastic, like. And then, as I say, go back to we won't mention the lights again too much, but then it was just bang.
What are these lights, Jackie? Sorry?
Christmas lights, Tom. Christmas lights.
And tell me this, Jackie, what was number of anglers like? Was it down, up, same regulars?
I think it was down this year, Dara. Slightly down. Yeah, I think it was slightly down on it. I think Sheelin, there was a lot of photos going up with big fish in Sheelin, and it kind of dragged it away from Arrow. Yeah. You know, people were on Sheelin fishing Mayfly nymphs, which did work. You know, I mean, on Sheelin, worked on Arrow, seemed to work on the Earn as well, like, and it's getting probably more and more that sort of a way that they're switching maybe to more Mayfly nymphs. Yeah. You know, the fish are not coming up. It's just.
Are you finding that, Tom, as well in Corrib?
Well, we really, the nymphs really are the huge factor here. It's interesting. I put it down to two reasons. First of all, we're not fishing them a lot, right? Which is probably a fair one. But also as well, we don't get the same hatch that you do in Sheelin and an Arrow. Like, we don't have spent. We do have a certain amount of spent fishing, but like Corrib is not a spent fishery, okay? And one of the reasons for that is we don't get the huge falls of spent. The reason we don't get the huge falls of spent is we don't have the huge hatches. So if you look at it, we're in an area in a lake where you're getting really big hatches, then there's going to be a preponderance of nymphs in certain areas. And it's like buzzer fishing. If you're fishing with a big hatch of buzzer and you're fishing your flies through big hatches or big volumes of flies, then there's a chance the fish is going to take them. So if you're in an area where fly might be sparser, maybe the fish still prefer to feed them off the wind. Maybe it's easier for them. It's all about what's the easiest for the trout to feed on.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I would agree.
The less searching a trout has to do, the more likely he is to eat it. So is it easier for a trout to go and fish a wind lane where the flies are getting brought to him? Yeah, maybe that's the way. Look, that's a stab at an answer. It's the best I can tell you.
Makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense.
Another thing, Jackie, one thing I wanted to ask you, any word on Lough Key?
Lough Key was I got one day on Lough Key. It was lively. Yeah, I got one day in the end on Lough Key, and it was lively, Tom. I never got back for the spent fishing on it. As it says, most of the bookings came in were all for Arrow, you know, and it was lively. Fish similar,
and
Tom.
That was your daytime green fly, like.
Yeah, green fly. It was lively. There was a good hatch on it just before Arrow. But when Arrow was fishing, people just still wanted to go to Arrow, Tom. Yeah. They just still wanted to go to Arrow. And as I said, emergers fished pretty well as well, just at the very start. And then as it kind of went on, it went off. They were more interested in the adults, if you know what I mean, Tom. They didn't seem to this year take as much emergers as the previous year, which was strange. Yeah. But it was standard adults. That's what they wanted, you know. And probably this year I've done a lot more stalking of fish. The larger fish, Tom, that just weren't out in the open water the were previous years. So you had to do a lot of stalking, right. You know, chasing them down, waiting for them, you know, and that's where the bigger fish was caught for us this year. Was that stalking, hiding the boat, hiding as much as you can. Even fishing from the shoreline this year was a big one. We got a lot of fish from the shoreline this year. Fishing from the shoreline, corners of islands. Yeah.
But the stalking is very nice, Jackie. It's a lovely part of it.
It's brilliant.
It's real hunting.
It's hunting, and I've done a good bit of that this year, you know, from the corners, even for the spent fishing at night time. I've done a good bit of that, and it was brilliant. It was fantastic. It was happy people. But that's where most of the larger fish was actually caught, than in open water. So
yeah, that's good. I love that, Jackie. Happy people.
Happy people. Happy people, happy clients.
Yeah, exactly. And Jackie, I ask Tom this every year as well at this time of year. Are you glad to see the back of it? Are you through it now?
Oh, the Mayfly madness, Dara. That's the Mayfly madness. Everything comes out, as I do say. When you what I see is 2 horsepowers, 4 horsepower engines come out. The lawnmowers, I do call them. They all come out of the garage for the Mayfly madness. That's what I do say, you know. And then they go back in for another year or until the following year, you know. And you can hear them anyway coming up the lake, you know who they are, you know.
But look, you'll have a day off soon anyway, Jackie, will you now?
I had a day off today, Dara.
Right.
first time in a long while,
Yeah.
and back at it again. And off tomorrow again, right through again.
Guys, I was wondering why you sounded so happy this morning.
I was,
checked with you on the phone.
I was, yeah. This new equipment, Tom, do you see? It was just mind blowing what you see in the boat, you know?
Yeah. Very true. Yep, very true.
Well, listen, Jackie, thanks a million for joining us. It's
No problem, guys.
it's great
No
to
problem.
catch up. We've got the latest from Carrow, from Sheelin, from Durg even, and now from Arrow as well. So might keep in touch with you later in the season anyway, Jackie,
Yeah,
to see
perfect,
how things are going
yeah,
anyway.
perfect,
But,
perfect.
Tight lines. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Our thanks to Eamonn and Jackie for joining us on the show. And don't forget to rate, review, and follow the Island on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Boom, nailed it. Plus, you can keep up to date on
It took me
Ireland.
2 years.
Plus, you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram. And myself and Tom will be back with another episode about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.